Oi. Engkau ni apa hal ni membebel seorang-seorang ni? Come on bro, chill, okay? Chill. Apa hal kau ni? Cuba cerita. Hei, malam Jumaat apa bendanya? Hari ni, hari kau tu dicerap. Tahu tak? Sekarang ni depan kau tu ada murid-murid, depan tu pula ada bonda jawhara. Sedang nilai kau. Hai semua. Apa masalah? Cuba cerita. Heleh, speaking English konon. Podah. Sekarang ni kita duduk di Malaysia, cakap bahasa Melayu, bahasa Malaysia. Negara kita pertahankan budaya dan bahasa kebahasaan kita. Tahu? By the way, apa masalah kau? Itu contoh. Tahu contoh? Idea boleh. Memandangkan kau tu adalah sama dengan aku, kita sehati sejiwa, baik, aku boleh tolong kau. Tapi ni aku nak tanya ni, murid-murid kau yang kat depan ni faham ke? Dengar dari tadi? Tak nak dengar saja. Dengar sini baik-baik. Saya kira sampai 5. Kalau awak tak datang kemari bawa pen dengan kertas, saya plank. 1, 2, 3, 4 dan 5. Tahu takut? Tak adalah, gurau, nasihat. Secara asasnya, ini yang saya nak cerita ya. Tolong dengar baik-baik. Secara asasnya, sumber idea ini kita boleh dapat pertamanya mungkin melalui daripada pengalaman. Sama ada cerita sendiri ataupun cerita orang lain. Kedua, melalui pengamatan, pendengaran. Okey, ketiga melalui pembacaan. Dan yang keempat melalui daripada mungkin dari cerita tokoh-tokoh sejarah, cerita-cerita sejarah dan juga daripada isu-isu semasa. Selebihnya kalau nak tahu lebih lanjut, saya akan paparkan 2 video ini. Tolong fahamkan baik-baik. Okey? Faham? Kita tengok video ini.
Do you have any suggestions to help writers brainstorm for ideas?
Yes. Well, first of all, let's just imagine that we've got 10 tracks of our brain, okay? That our brain can do 10 things at one time. One of those tracks, if you're a writer, should be always sensitive to and aware of ideas. They're out there. They're out there all over the place. They're in newspaper articles. They're in conversations you hear with people at the coffee shop. They're on the radio. They're on your click thing that happens. I know, for example, David Rabinowitz and Charlie Wachtel, who wrote Black Klansman. And I interviewed them and I said, well, how did you guys come up with it? And I think David said, well, I was trying to avoid writing, and so I was just doing the click thing, and I stumbled on this Facebook article about this guy, Ron Stallworth, who was the first black policeman in Colorado Springs, who then did this thing with the Ku Klux Klan. So that's how they discovered it. So one thing is just be conscious of it. The other thing is be intentional. Like every day, you should be thinking about story ideas. Now, people are not going to necessarily, it's going to vary from person to person, but there have been times in my life where I literally said, I'm going to come up with an idea a day, every day. I'm going to come up, and a third point to that, related, is Dr. Linus Pauling, who's the only person to win 2 Nobel Prizes. And he has that saying, the best way to come up with a good idea is to come up with a lot of ideas. And so that's a third point that you can do, is just generate a lot of ideas. Keep a file. Like I've got a Word file stretching back 20 some odd years with literally hundreds and hundreds of ideas, most of them awful. But you keep working that muscle And then eventually, I think, chances are that you're going to surface something. Now, then you have to assess the ideas. And so there's certain questions you can ask, like, well, is this big enough to be a movie? Who's the audience for this? What's the hook? That central conceit. Like when I sold Canine, I remember going into an executive's office and they said, God, what you guys did was so brilliant. You took the buddy action comedy formula, the police cop, and you put in Ren 1010, who was like the biggest star in Hollywood back in the late 20s and 30s. And I learned a very valuable lesson there, which is that you always, when somebody gives you a compliment, even if you didn't mean it, you go, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So I said, yeah, that's exactly what we were thinking, because I hadn't thought that at all. But, that idea, I could walk in, at that point in time in 1987, I could have walked into any producer's office or any bar where people were hanging out. What are you working on? I said, yeah, I got this idea, Canine. Loner cop, new partner, police dog. They would see that. So the hook there is the police dog. Nobody had done that, So you look for like Inception, the idea of being able to go inside someone's Groundhog Day, reliving the same. That thing, what's that thing that's going to set it off from, something else? So those are some keys, have one part of your brain going, be intentional about it, be generating a lot of ideas and hoping that you'll come up with, some really good ones, some strong ones off that, and then assess them to make sure that you feel like it's big enough and good enough to be a movie.
If you're going to submit a script to Radius, or anyone else for that matter, there are some things that you ought to fix before you send it. People are more likely to take your script seriously if you've already got the basics working, and you'll get feedback on what really matters. Your script needs to be formatted properly. Check out a published play. The lines of dialogue are indented, stage directions are in italics, and everything's nicely spaced out. Don't complicate it, and don't try to cram too much onto every page, otherwise your actors will react like this. And anyone who might want to produce your play, like this. Your average play is actually quite slim. That's because words take longer to say than they do to read. Anyway, you're writing your play for actors, so let the acting do the talking.
The thing that has happened has made me feel unutterably sad. Words can't describe my sadness, but look, let me try to use words to describe it anyway. It's all the sadness of what has happened distilled into a single emotion.
Yes, I can tell how sad you are from the way that you told me how sad you are, and I empathise with your sadness in a way that is making me feel an emotion also.
It is?
It is. Let me use words to try to explain how I feel.
When it comes to dialogue, less is definitely more. Plays are about telling stories. Ask yourself whether every scene, every line of dialogue is contributing to the story you want to tell. And here's the hard part. If it's not, cut it. If you've got a clear idea in your head of how you want your play to look, feel, and sound, chances are you're going to be tempted to put all of that information into the stage directions.
Okay, so Jane walks across the stage, trying to hide her limp, but failing. She stops about 2 meters beyond the middle of the stage, looking out into the audience. Her left hand rests lightly on her hip, her right hand rubs her shoulder as if massaging a tiny ache. Her feet are about 6 inches apart and at the angle of 67 degrees. Her head tilts backwards and she laughs. Shortly and silently. She then sits on the ornate trickling fountain which ought to form part of the set at this point.
Don't. Limit stage directions to the bare necessities. The best way to see if your play is working is to hear it for yourself. So get some friends over. Get them to read it through. Try out some scenes. Find out for yourself what's not working before sending it to someone you don't know. So, do make sure it's clear. Don't write too much. Do focus on the story. Don't tell actors how to act. And do try it out. You'll find more tips and information about submitting scripts to Radius at radiusdrama.org.uk.
And James smiles at the camera, tilts his head subtly to the left, at an angle of about 67 degrees. I know.
You'll find more tips and information about submitting scripts to Radius at radiusdrama.org.uk.
Ha, macam mana? Ha, faham tak? Kalau mereka tak faham lagi, apa kata macam ni? Aku masuk dalam tubuh badan kau. Lepas tu kita bergabung, kita buat tugasan untuk mereka. Macam mana? Boleh? Saya masuk dalam tubuh badan cikgu awak, ayahanda awak.